The morning mist clings low to the earth, swallowing the road ahead. Somewhere in the distance, faint echoes of marching feet fade into silence. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Rome ruled much of the known world. Its armies were disciplined, relentless, and almost unstoppable. Among them was a legion hardened by years of battle, the 9th Legion. They had marched across lands far from home, fought enemies who spoke different tongues, and carried the weight of Rome's power wherever they went. And yet,
Wait!
It was here, on the cold and distant edge of Britain, that their story takes a strange turn. Imagine it for a moment. A column of soldiers disappears into the forest, their red cloaks dimmed by fog. The air grows colder, the trees grow thicker, and then nothing. No final battle recorded, no bodies found, no clear answer left behind. An entire legion, thousands of trained Roman soldiers, simply gone. History remembers their name, but not their fate. And so the question remains, drifting through time like the mist itself. What happened to the 9th Legion? The mist may hide what happened to the 9th Legion, but to understand how something so powerful could vanish, we first have to understand Rome itself. Because this wasn't just any army. Rome was, in many ways, the heartbeat of the ancient world. Its roads stretched farther than most people could imagine. Its laws shaped entire societies. And its legions were the force that made it all possible. A Roman legion was more than a group of soldiers. It was a machine, precise, disciplined, and relentless. Each man trained to fight, to march, to build, and to survive. They could construct forts overnight, cross rivers in formation, and hold their ground against overwhelming odds. These were not reckless warriors charging into chaos. They were organized, calculated, controlled. And among these legions, the 9th stood as one of the most experienced. They had seen battle, real battle, the kind that leaves scars not just on armor, but on memory. They had fought in distant lands, far from the warmth of home, carrying the banner of Rome into territories that resisted at every step. To the people of those lands, the sight of a Roman legion was unmistakable. Rows of shields, the rhythm of synchronized footsteps, the cold glint of steel under a muted sky. It was a symbol of power, of order, of something unstoppable. But power like that comes with a cost. The further Rome expanded, the more it had to hold together, and not every land welcomed its presence. Some resisted quietly. Others fought back fiercely. And that brings us to the edge of the empire, to a place where Roman discipline met something far less predictable. A land of dense forest, shifting weather, and tribes who knew every inch of the terrain. Britain? For Rome, it wasn't just another territory. It was distant, difficult, unfamiliar. And for the 9th Legion, it would become something even more than that. Because this wasn't just another campaign. This was the beginning of the end of their story. Rome was powerful, organized, unshakable. But even an empire like Rome had its limits. Far from the warm heart of the Mediterranean, beyond the great cities and carefully built roads, there was a land that felt different, a place where control slipped and certainty faded. Britain. To the Romans, it was the edge of the world, The journey alone was enough to unsettle even seasoned soldiers. Cold winds rolled in from the sea. The sky hung low and gray. And once they stepped inland, the land itself seemed to close around them. Forests stretched endlessly, thick and shadowed. The ground was wet, uneven, unpredictable. Roads were few, and the familiar order of Rome began to disappear with every mile. This was not a place that could be easily mapped or easily controlled. And then there were the people. The tribes of Britain didn't fight like the enemies Rome was used to. They didn't line up in open fields or follow the rules of organized warfare. They moved through the forests, struck quickly, and vanished just as fast. To a Roman legion trained for structure and formation, this kind of enemy was something else entirely. Unseen, unpredictable, always just out of reach. Even when Rome claimed victory, the land never truly felt conquered. There was always resistance, always tension, always the sense that something was watching from just beyond the trees. For soldiers like those of the Ninth Legion, Britain was more than just another assignment. It was a place where the rules changed, where strength didn't always guarantee survival, where discipline met uncertainty and control gave way to something far less certain. And yet they marched forward, deeper into the forests, further from the safety of Roman order. Step by step, they moved into a land that did not welcome them, a land that seemed to swallow armies whole. And somewhere in that cold, mist-covered wilderness, the trail of the Ninth Legion begins to fade. Step by step, deeper into that cold and unfamiliar land, the Ninth Legion kept moving forward. Britain had already begun to change them. The endless forests, the damp air, the silence that never quite felt empty. It all pressed in from every side. And yet, they were Roman soldiers. Discipline held them together. Orders pushed them on. Until something changed. Somewhere around the early 2nd century, the records began to thin. The clear lines of Roman history, so carefully written, so precisely kept, start to blur. The Ninth Legion is mentioned, and then, suddenly, it isn't. No grand account of a final battle. No detailed report sent back to Rome. No list of fallen soldiers carved into stone. Just silence. For an empire that documented nearly everything, that silence is as loud as any clash of swords. Historians have searched for answers in fragments, inscriptions, ruins, scattered references. There are hints that the legion was stationed in northern Britain, possibly near the frontiers where resistance was strongest. And then, nothing. Imagine that for a moment. Thousands of trained soldiers, officers, engineers, standard bearers, an entire system built with precision over years of service, simply gone from the record. It doesn't fit the pattern. When Roman legions were destroyed, it was usually remembered, recorded. Even in defeat, Rome told its stories. But here, there is no story. Only questions. Did they march north, into lands even less understood, and never return? Were they surrounded in the forest, cut off from support, their formations broken by an enemy they could not see? Or did something slower, quieter happen? Something that left no dramatic ending, only a gradual disappearance. What makes the mystery even deeper is what comes after. The Ninth Legion, once clearly identified in Roman records, seems to vanish entirely. Later documents speak of other legions, other movements, other campaigns, but not this one. It is as if they were erased. And yet, traces remain. Archaeologists have uncovered pieces of their presence, fragments of inscriptions, evidence of camps, signs that they were once very real, very active. But those traces stop, like footprints that suddenly end in the middle of a path. No sign of where they turned, no indication of what came next. Just a break in the story. For the soldiers themselves, whatever happened likely unfolded far from the safety of Rome. No witnesses to carry the tale back, no survivors to explain the end. Only the land around them, cold, silent, and unyielding. And so, the disappearance of the Ninth Legion is not marked by a single dramatic moment. It is defined by absence, by the gap between what we know and what we will likely never know. Somewhere in that mist-covered wilderness, something happened. Something significant enough to erase a legion from history. And all that remains now is the silence they left behind. The silence left behind by the Ninth Legion is unsettling. No final battle, no clear ending, just absence. And when history offers no answers, the human mind does what it always has. It begins to imagine. Over the years, many theories have tried to fill that silence. Some are grounded in evidence. Others lean more into speculation. But all of them attempt to answer the same haunting question. What could erase an entire Roman legion? One of the oldest and most compelling ideas is this, that the Ninth Legion was destroyed in Britain. It's not hard to picture. A long column of Roman soldiers moving through dense forest. Visibility low, the air thick with mist. And somewhere, hidden among the trees, enemies waiting. The tribes of northern Britain knew the land in ways the Romans never could. They didn't need open battlefields. They didn't follow Roman rules. They could strike fast, surround, disappear. In that kind of environment, even a disciplined legion could be broken. Cut off from reinforcements, confused by terrain, attacked from all sides. If something like that happened, it might explain why no survivors returned, why no report was ever written, why the story ends so abruptly. But there's a problem. Rome usually recorded its defeats, even its worst ones. So why is there no clear mention of such a disaster? That question leads to another theory. Maybe the Ninth Legion didn't disappear in Britain at all. Some historians believe the legion was moved elsewhere, possibly to the eastern provinces of the empire, where conflicts were just as dangerous, if not more. There are hints, scattered across different regions, that suggest the legion might have continued to exist after its supposed disappearance in Britain. If that's true, then perhaps the mystery lies not in Britain, but somewhere far beyond it. A distant battlefield, a forgotten campaign, a defeat that was recorded differently, or not recorded at all. In that version of the story, the Ninth Legion didn't vanish suddenly. It simply faded from the spotlight of history. And then there's a quieter theory. Less dramatic, but just as unsettling. What if nothing extraordinary happened at all? What if the Legion was slowly reduced over time through smaller battles, losses, and reassignments, until it was eventually disbanded? No single moment, no defining catastrophe. Just a gradual end. It's the kind of explanation that makes sense on paper. But it doesn't quite satisfy the mystery, because something still feels missing. The Ninth Legion wasn't just any unit. It had a name, a reputation, a history that stretched across years of service. For something like that to simply fade away without clear record or recognition feels incomplete. Almost as if a piece of the story was lost. And maybe that's the truth we're left with. Not one answer, but several possibilities. Each one offering a different ending. Each one leaving something unexplained. Perhaps the Ninth Legion was destroyed in a moment of chaos, swallowed by the forests of Britain. Perhaps it marched on, far from where we expect, and met its fate in a place history barely remembers. Or perhaps it disappeared, slowly, quietly, until there was nothing left to remember at all. We may never know which of these is true. But in a way, that uncertainty is what keeps the story alive. Because as long as the ending remains unwritten, the question continues to echo. And somewhere between history and imagination, the Ninth Legion still marches. After all the theories, all the possibilities, we're left standing in the same place, in the quiet. No matter which version of the story you believe, whether the Ninth Legion was destroyed in the forests of Britain, lost on some distant frontier, or simply faded over time, one thing remains unchanged. There is no ending we can point to with certainty. And maybe that's what makes this story different. Most histories give us closure, a final battle, a clear victory or defeat, something we can hold on to. But not this one. The story of the Ninth Legion doesn't end with a clash of armies or a heroic last stand. It ends with silence. And that silence has lasted for nearly 2,000 years. Yet somehow, it still speaks. It speaks in the ruins left behind, in the worn stones of old Roman roads, in the fragments of inscriptions buried beneath the earth. It speaks in the questions that refuse to disappear. What really happened out there? What did those soldiers see in their final moments? And did anyone make it back? We may never have those answers. But perhaps the value of this story isn't in solving the mystery. Perhaps it's in remembering that even the greatest empires had limits. That even the most disciplined armies could step into the unknown and not return. There's something deeply human in that. Because history isn't just made of victories and records. It's also made of gaps, of things lost, of stories that were never fully told. And sometimes those are the stories that stay with us the longest. So the next time you imagine those mist-covered forests of ancient Britain, picture the road disappearing into the fog. Hear the faint echo of marching feet. And then, nothing. No voices. No answers. Just a silence. A silence that, even now, still speaks.